the massive crystal chamber filled with worried voices as aliens from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency meeting. Ambassador Vexstar stood at the center, his see-through body shaking with fear. The news he brought would terrify every living being in the room. "The Kepler sector's gone," he said, his voice echoing off the walls. 17 different worlds, billions of lives, all consumed by the Void Hunters. The room went completely silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years now looked at each other with the same expression of pure terror. The Void Hunters were not like other threats they had faced. These beings did not want to rule or control. They wanted to consume everything. Captain Lee Minwoo had been studying the Void Hunters for decades from his research station on the edge of known space. His reports painted a picture that made even the bravest warriors shake with fear. The Void Hunters traveled in ships the size of small moons. These ships could appear anywhere without warning, like ghosts materializing from the darkness of space. They have been doing this for 300 years. Lee Minwoo's recorded message played through the chamber's speakers. They move from galaxy to galaxy, like a plague. They take everything, metals, water, air, and all living creatures. When they leave, nothing remains but empty, dead rocks floating in space. The assembled delegates listened in horror as the report continued. The Void Hunters were not biological creatures anymore. Long ago, they had replaced their bodies with machines and computers. They shared one mind across their entire species, making them perfectly coordinated in battle. They felt no fear, no pain, and no mercy. "We tried everything," said General Zexar of the warrior clans, his voice breaking. "We sent our greatest fleets against them. Ships that could destroy planets could not even scratch their hulls. We offered them tribute, gold, rare crystals, even entire star systems. They took everything and still consumed our worlds." Ambassador Cretin from the Peaceful Federation stood up, her tentacles wrapping nervously around her communication device. "My people tried to negotiate with them. We sent our best diplomats with offers of peaceful coexistence. The Void Hunters kept our ambassadors as specimens and turned their ships into scrap metal. The fear in the room was so thick it felt like breathing through water. These were not weak species cowering before a bully. These were the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, beings who had mastered faster than light travel. Energy weapons that could cut through stars and defensive shields that could stop the explosion of suns. None of it mattered against the Void Hunters. They study us first," explained Dr. Yexera, the galaxy's leading expert on Void Hunter tactics. "They send small scout ships to watch and learn. They discover our weapons, our defenses, our military strategies. By the time their main fleet arrives, they know exactly how to defeat us." The doctor activated a holographic display, showing the path of destruction across multiple galaxies. Red dots marked dead systems, each one representing billions of lost lives. The pattern was always the same. The Void Hunters would appear, study their targets for a few weeks, then unleash total destruction. "Look at this pattern." Dr. Yexera pointed at the display. "They are heading toward the Milky Way galaxy. Our long-range sensors confirm it. They will arrive in approximately 6 months." Panic erupted throughout the chamber. Species began shouting, in dozens of different languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. Some demanded immediate evacuation of their homeworlds. Others called for a final, desperate military alliance. Many simply sat in stunned silence, accepting their fate. Scout Commander Trazik stepped forward with new intelligence. There is a small solar system in their direct path. Third planet from a yellow star. The inhabitants call themselves humans, and their world Earth. The chamber's main computer projected an image of Earth, a blue and green world covered in clouds. Looked peaceful and beautiful, completely unaware of the doom approaching from the stars. "What do we know about these humans?" asked Ambassador Vexstar. "They are very primitive," replied Trazik. "No faster than light travel, no energy weapons, no planetary shields. They are still confined to their single world with only basic space stations. By our calculations, the Void Hunters will consume their entire civilization in less than 3 days. Several delegates shook their heads sadly. Another innocent species about to be erased from existence. The humans had no idea what was coming. For them? Should we warn them? Asked a voice from the back of the chamber. The question hung in the air like a death sentence. What could they possibly tell these humans? That unstoppable monsters were coming to eat their world. That every advanced civilization in the galaxy was powerless to help them. What would be the point? Ambassador Vexstar's form grew dimmer with sadness. Let them live their final months in peace. At least they will not spend their last days in terror, like the rest of us. The meeting ended with a decision that would haunt many of them. They would not contact Earth. They would let the humans face their doom in ignorance, just as 17 other civilizations had done before them. None of them suspected that this small blue world might hold the key to stopping the galaxy's greatest nightmare. The massive Void Hunter ship called Harvester Prime appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark shadow against the stars. It was bigger than most space stations, covered in strange metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect. Inside the ship, thousands of cybernetic minds worked together as one. Analyzing the small blue planet that orbited the third position from its sun, Commander Unit 7 Alpha processed the incoming data streams with cold efficiency. Earth's population registered at 7 billion biological entities. Their technology was laughably primitive. They still used chemical rockets to reach space and nuclear weapons for warfare. Their fastest ships would take months to travel between planets in their own solar system. Assessment complete, announced the collective voice that spoke through every Void Hunter simultaneously. Target species designated human poses 0 threat to fleet operations. Estimated consumption time, 72 hours following initial contact. But as Unit 7, Alpha, dove deeper into the human databases they had secretly accessed, something unusual caught its attention. The behavioral patterns did not match typical prey species. Most civilizations, when faced with overwhelming force, would either surrender immediately or fight desperately for a few days before giving up. Humans showed different patterns. Dr. Park Ji-won sat in her small office at the Seoul National University, completely unaware that alien sensors were scanning every piece of human history. She was writing a paper about human psychology during wartime, documenting how people reacted to impossible situations. Her research would have fascinated the Void Hunters if they had understood its significance. The alien computers processed thousands of years of human warfare. They analyzed the Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off an army of thousands. They studied the siege of Leningrad, where people ate tree bark and leather rather than surrender. They examined the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, where poorly armed civilians fought against a modern army. Anomaly detected, Unit 7 Alpha reported to the collective. This species demonstrates unusual persistence in hopeless situations. They appear to become more aggressive when cornered, not less. The main Void Hunter fleet, still traveling through hyperspace toward Earth, received this information with mild interest. Every species had some unique trait, better weapons, stronger bodies, or superior technology. None of it had ever mattered. Before, raw technological superiority always won in the end. On Earth, Lieutenant Kim Dae-ho was conducting routine military exercises with his unit, practicing urban warfare scenarios. He had no idea that his training methods were being analyzed by alien intelligence systems. The Void Hunters watched as humans practiced fighting in cities, using buildings for cover and turning everyday objects into weapons. Curious muttered. Unit 7 Alpha, as it observed the exercises, they trained for scenarios where conventional military structures have failed. Most species focus on large-scale battles between organized armies. The Void Hunter computers had studied millions of species across hundreds of galaxies. They had developed perfect mathematical models for predicting how any civilization would respond to invasion. Superior technology created fear. Fear led to desperation. Desperation led to surrender. The formula had never failed, but human history seemed to follow a different pattern. When faced with superior technology, humans adapted. When facing impossible odds, they became creative. When their governments fell, they continued fighting as individuals. The Void Hunter models could not account for this behavior. Engineer Choi Min-soo was working late in his laboratory, developing new materials for construction projects. His work on creating stronger building materials from common resources was being carefully cataloged by alien observers. They noted how humans constantly improve their technology, not through sudden breakthroughs, but through thousands of small improvements made by individuals working alone. This species shows unusual innovation patterns, Unit 7 Alpha reported. They do not rely solely on centralized research. Individual units develop solutions independently and share information rapidly across their communication networks. The collective consciousness of the Void Hunters struggled to understand this concept. They had evolved beyond individual thought, sharing one mind across their entire species. The idea of millions of separate minds working toward common goals was foreign to them. Captain Yoon Ji-hai was training new recruits at a military base outside Seoul. She taught them that the key to surviving impossible situations was to never give up looking for solutions. Every problem has an answer, she told her students. Sometimes the answer is not what you expect, but it is always there. The Void Hunters recorded her words, adding them to their growing database of human behavior patterns. They had conquered species with weapons that could destroy stars. But they had never encountered a species that seemed to believe every problem could be solved. As the Harvester Prime completed its surveillance mission, Unit 7 Alpha compiled its final report. The humans possessed no significant military technology, no energy shields, and no faster-than-light capability. By every measurable standard, they were defenseless. Yet something in the data patterns created an unfamiliar sensation in Unit 7 Alpha's circuit, something that might have been called doubt if Void Hunters were capable of such emotions. Recommendation: Unit 7 Alpha, transmitted to the approaching fleet, maintain standard assault protocols.
However,
Monitor for unexpected resistance patterns. This species may require additional time to fully pacify. The main Void Hunter fleet received this warning with the cybernetic equivalent of laughter. They had been conquering galaxies for 3 centuries. No primitive species had ever required more than their standard protocols. They were about to learn that Earth was not just another primitive species. The first sign of invasion came at exactly 3:47 GMT, when every satellite orbiting Earth suddenly went silent. Television screens around the world flickered to static. Cell phones lost their signals. GPS systems failed. Humanity's digital nervous system was completely severed. Lieutenant Kim Dae-ho was on duty at the Seoul Defense Command when the emergency alarms began blaring. Through the reinforced windows, he watched as massive shadows began blocking out the stars. 12 enormous ships, each one larger than the city itself, descended through the atmosphere like dark thunderclouds. "Sir, we have no contact with any other bases," reported Sergeant Park Min-ho, frantically working his radio equipment. "Nothing from the Americans, Russians, Chinese, or anyone else. All our satellites are gone." The Void Hunter hive ships took position above Earth's major cities. Their holes were so massive they created artificial eclipses, casting entire metropolitan areas into darkness. From the bottom of each ship, smaller vessels began emerging like deadly insects pouring from a hive. Captain Lee Jun-sik stood on the roof of his apartment building in Busan, watching the alien drop pods fall like burning meteors. Each pod was the size of a small building, and they were falling everywhere in city centers, suburbs, farmland, and forests. The invasion was not focused on military targets. It was total and overwhelming. "This is it," he whispered to his wife, Park Hae-jin, who stood beside him holding their young daughter. "This is how the world ends." But Park Hae-jin squeezed his hand tighter. "No," she said firmly. "This is how we find out what we are really made of." The first Void Hunter soldiers that emerged from the pods were unlike anything humans had imagined. They stood 3 meters tall, with bodies that seemed to be a mixture of metal and flesh. Their faces were hidden behind masks that glowed with cold blue light. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single machine, the aliens expected. To find humans cowering in terror, begging for mercy, or fleeing in panic. Instead, they found something completely unexpected. In Seoul, University student Lee Haijin grabbed bottles from a convenience store and began making Molotov cocktails in her dorm room. She had never made explosives before, but she remembered seeing it in movies. When the first Void Hunter patrol entered her building, they were met with burning bottles thrown from every window. Factory worker Choi Sung-min was at his job when the pods landed in the industrial district. Instead of running, he grabbed his welding torch and heavy machinery tools. "I built things my whole life," he told his coworkers. "Now I am going to break things." The Void Hunters had studied human military capabilities and planned accordingly. They had electromagnetic pulse weapons to disable human electronics, energy shields to stop human bullets, and superior numbers to overwhelm human forces. What they had not planned for was humans who refused to follow any logical pattern of behavior. Old man Kim Tae-woo had survived the Korean War as a child. When alien soldiers broke down his door, they found him waiting with a hunting rifle that was older than most countries. "I have been invaded before," he told them in Korean, knowing they would not understand. "I am still here. You will not be." The Void Hunters quickly discovered that humans did not fight like other species. There was no central command to decapitate, no single leader whose death would end resistance. When their government buildings were destroyed, humans kept fighting. When their military bases were overrun, civilians picked up weapons. When their weapons ran out, they used kitchen knives, baseball bats, and their bare hands. Dr. Seo Junho was a computer engineer working for a tech company in Gangnam. When the aliens cut off all communications, he did not give up. Instead, he began building new communication systems using old radio equipment and car batteries. Within hours, he had established contact between resistance groups across the city. "Cut our internet," he told the growing network of fighters, "so we make a new one. They destroyed our phones, so we use radios. They want to isolate us, but we will not be isolated." The most shocking discovery for the Void Hunters came when they tried to use their standard psychological warfare tactics. They broadcast messages showing the destruction of other worlds, expecting humans to surrender when they saw the futility of resistance. Instead, the broadcasts seemed to make humans angrier and more determined. Young hacker Kong So-young was only 16 years old, but she had been programming computers since she was 8. When she saw the alien broadcasts, she did not feel fear. She felt curiosity. "Their ships have computers," she told her friends hiding in the subway tunnels. "If they have computers, I can hack them." By the end of the first week, the Void Hunters controlled most of Earth's major cities, but they had not achieved the quick victory they expected. Humans continued to fight from the ruins of their civilization. They learned to avoid the aliens, energy weapons, to hide from their sensors, and to strike at their weakest points. The collective consciousness of the Void Hunter fleet began experiencing something they had never felt before: confusion. This was not following the pattern. These humans should have surrendered by now. Instead, the resistance was growing stronger every day. 3 months after the invasion began, Captain Yoon Ji-hai crept through the bombed remains of what used to be downtown Busan. In her hands, she carried a weapon that would have been impossible to imagine before the aliens came. A modified Void Hunter plasma rifle that hummed with deadly energy. Behind her, a team of human fighters moved like ghosts through the rubble. One carrying alien technology that they had learned to use better than its original creators. The irony was not lost on any of them. The species that called themselves Void Hunters, because they hunted entire civilizations to extinction, were now the ones being hunted. "Target spotted," whispered Private Nam Tae-woo through their improvised communication system. 2 hunter killers moving through the old shopping district. "They look lost." Ji-hai smiled grimly. The aliens did look lost these days. Their perfect coordination had been shattered weeks ago when a 16-year-old girl named Kong So-young had somehow broken into their shared computer network. Now the Void Hunters stumbled around like blind giants, no longer able to think as one unified mind. Dr. Seo Junho has been the first to figure out how to reverse engineer alien technology. Working in a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of Seoul National University, He discovered that Void Hunter equipment was surprisingly easy to modify once you understood the basic principles. They built everything to work perfectly together. He explained to other engineers, but that also makes it predictable. Once you know the pattern, you can change it. The breakthrough had come when factory worker Choi Sung-min brought him a damaged alien drone. Instead of trying to repair it, Junho had torn it apart and rebuilt it with human components. The result was a hybrid machine that could fool Void Hunter sensors while being controlled by human operators. The trick is not to fight their technology, Junho had told the growing network of human engineers. The trick is to make their technology fight itself. Within weeks, human workshops hidden in subway tunnels and abandoned buildings were producing modified alien weapons. Faster than the Void Hunters could replace their losses, plasma rifles were reprogrammed to overload alien armor. Communication devices were hacked to send false signals. Even their flying ships were turned against them when brave pilots like Captain Lee Junsik figured out how to fly captured alien fighters. But the real turning point came when young Kung So-young achieved what no one thought possible. She hacked into the Void Hunter collective consciousness itself, working from a hidden computer lab in the basement of her destroyed school. So-young had spent weeks studying captured alien computer systems. Their mistake was thinking that sharing one mind made them stronger, she explained to the amazed adults around her. But if you can get inside that one mind, you can control all of them at once. The virus she created was a masterpiece of human creativity and determination. It did not try to destroy the Void Hunter network. Instead, it made them doubt themselves. For a species that had never experienced uncertainty, the effect was devastating. Suddenly, Void Hunter soldiers began hesitating before attacking. Their shared thoughts became confused and contradictory. Some units began fighting each other. Unable to determine which orders were real and which were false, signals planted by So-young's virus. The psychological impact on the aliens was even more severe than the tactical advantages it gave humans. The Void Hunters had conquered hundreds of worlds because they were absolutely certain of their superiority. Now, for the first time in their 300-year reign of terror, they experienced fear. Commander Unit 7 Alpha, trapped in its ship. Above Seoul, processed streams of panicked reports from ground forces. Human resistance was not decreasing as predicted. It was growing stronger every day. Worse, the humans were learning and adapting faster than the Void Hunter computer models could calculate. Possible, the collective consciousness repeated. Over and over, like a broken record. Primitive species cannot adapt this quickly. Our technology is superior. Our coordination is perfect. This should not be happening. But it was happening. In the ruins of Busan, Jihai's team successfully ambushed the two hunter killers, using their own plasma weapons against them. In Seoul, Choi Sung-min led a group of factory workers who had learned to reprogram alien construction robots, turning them into weapons against their former masters. In Incheon, Dr. Park Ji-won had organized a network of doctors who were treating wounded fighters with alien medical technology that worked better than anything humans had ever developed. The most terrifying discovery for the Void Hunters was that humans seemed to thrive under pressure. The worse their situation became, the more creative and determined they grew. Species that had surrendered after losing a few battles, humans continued fighting even after losing entire cities. They are not behaving logically, Unit 7 Alpha reported to the fleet commanders. According to all models, they should have surrendered after the first week. Instead, their resistance capabilities are increasing exponentially. The response from the fleet was silence. For the first time in their existence, the Void Hunters had no answer to a tactical problem. In the depths of space, 12 hive ships that had never known defeat began preparing for something they had never done before: retreat. The hunters were becoming the hunted, and they did not know how to survive in a universe where they were no longer the most dangerous predators. The nightmare that had terrorized galaxies for 3 centuries was finally experiencing its own nightmare. Humanity. The last Void Hunter hive ship limped away from Earth like a wounded animal fleeing from a predator. Its hull was scarred with burn marks from human weapons, and its once perfect systems sparked and failed randomly. Inside, the collective consciousness that had once controlled millions of cybernetic minds was fractured into confused fragments. Unable to understand how their 300-year reign of terror had ended in complete defeat, Commander Unit 7 Alpha transmitted one final message to the fleeing fleet. Species designation human has achieved impossible victory. Recommend immediate evacuation of all Void Hunter forces from this galaxy. Threat level, extinction. The message spread through the galaxy faster than the speed of light itself. Species that had cowered in fear for centuries could hardly believe the news. The Void Hunters, the unstoppable nightmare that had consumed entire civilizations, had been defeated by a primitive species that most aliens had never even heard of. 6 months later, Admiral Lim Yun-jae stood on the bridge of humanity's first interstellar warship. The Soul's Pride was a marvel of engineering that combined human creativity with captured alien technology. Its hull was built from Earth steel, but its engines used modified Void Hunter power systems. Its weapons were based on alien plasma technology, but controlled by human computer systems that were immune to cybernetic attack. Admiral reported Navigation Officer Park Hae-won from her station. We are receiving distress signals from the Kepler sector. Multiple species are reporting Void Hunter activity. They are requesting immediate assistance. Yun-jae nodded calmly. This was the 15th distress call they had received this month. Word of humanity's victory over the Void Hunters had spread throughout the galaxy, and now every threatened species looked to Earth for protection. Signal the fleet, she ordered. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Out. And transmit our standard response on all frequencies. The message that went out across the galaxy was simple, but powerful. This is Admiral Lim Yun-jae of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call. Help is on the way. Hold your positions and do not surrender. We are coming. Dr. Seo Jun-hao, now serving as the fleet's chief engineer, monitored the ship's hybrid systems from the engine room. The combination of human and alien technology had created something neither species could have built alone. Human innovation had taken Void Hunter efficiency and made it more flexible, more adaptable, more alive. Engineering reports all systems running at maximum efficiency, he announced over the communication system. The alien power cores are stable, and our defensive systems are operating perfectly. The Earth Defense Fleet had grown from a handful of captured alien ships to over 100 vessels in just 6 months. Each ship was crewed by humans who had learned to fight the galaxy's greatest enemy and won. They were no longer the primitive species that had once been dismissed as insignificant. Captain Yoon Ji-hai commanded the destroyer Busan Defender, leading a squadron of fast attack ships toward the distress signal. Her crew was made up of the same people who had fought in the ruins of Earth cities, former students, factory workers, engineers, and hackers who had learned to turn alien technology against its creators. Captain, reported Communications Officer Kim Soo-jin. We are receiving a transmission from the Crystalline Dominion. Ambassador Vexstar wishes to speak with you personally. The holographic image of the crystal alien appeared on the bridge's main screen. Vexstar, who had once announced Earth's doom to the Andromeda Council, now looked at the human captain with something approaching reverence. Captain Yoon Vexstar said, his translucent form flickering with emotion. My people cannot adequately express our gratitude. The Void Hunters have been terrorizing the outer colonies for weeks. We thought we were doomed to suffer the same fate as so many others. Not while we are here, Ji-hai replied firmly. The age of the Void Hunters is over. Any species that threatens innocent life will have to deal with humanity first. Back on Earth, the planet that had once been considered a backwater world was now the center of galactic attention. The Andromeda Council had moved its headquarters to a space station in Earth's orbit, acknowledging humanity's new role as the galaxy's protectors. Young Kong So-young, now 18 and serving as Earth's Minister of Cybernetic Defense, worked with alien computer experts to develop new security systems for the Galactic Communication Network. Her virus that had shattered the Void Hunter collective consciousness had become the foundation for a new type of digital warfare. The key is not to build walls, she explained to her mixed team of human and alien programmers. The key is to build systems that can adapt faster than any attacker can change. We learned that from fighting the Void Hunters. In the deepest parts of space, Scattered Void Hunter survivors huddled in hidden bases, no longer the feared predators they had once been. They had become the galaxy's boogeyman stories, cautionary tales about what happened to those who threatened. Peaceful species. The Earth Defense Fleet arrived at the Kepler sector to find Void Hunter. Ships already fleeing at the first sign of human vessels. The sight of Earth's distinctive blue and white hull markings was enough to send the former galaxy conquerors running in terror. "This is Admiral Lim Young-jae to all Void Hunter forces," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You have 30 seconds to leave this system before we open fire. Your choice." The alien ships vanished into hyperspace before she finished speaking. The galaxy had a new guardian. Its name was humanity.